Hey, happy day 742 of What You Up To Now. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, also known as Pajama Grandma, with my unicorn and my unicorn jammies today. I put those on this morning. A little chilly. We got a nice fresh layer of snow. It's snowing outside. I can see it's beautiful snowing outside. So I wanted to be warm and cozy this morning, and I'm sipping my bulletproof coffee in my sorry I'm late, I didn't want to come cup, but I did want to come. I did want to hop online and just chat for a few minutes. The idiom that I talked about in Supersize Your Business today was point of no return. And of course, point of no return, the more I think about it, the more things that come up for me that I can relate to when I think about this expression. Point of no return means, of course, that you get yourself into a position where you can't turn around. You can't change your mind, or you feel like it's impossible to change your mind or turn around or do something different because you've gone down a certain road, gone down a certain path. It comes from World War II. When the pilots would go out to fly missions, there was a point of no return where if they went past that point, they would run out of fuel and they wouldn't make it back to their base. And they would probably crash and die, right? If you run out of fuel in a plane, that's a really bad thing. So how often have you, I know I've got, like I said, the longer I'm thinking about this and the more I'm talking about it, the more examples of I have seen how this has impacted me in my life in the past. It impacted me in my marriage. It impacted me in relationships. I stayed in relationships longer than I ever should have. Not just with my husband, but with other people before him, where you invest a bunch of time and energy and you think that you need to be in these relationships and you need to make it work no matter what, and that there's this fear of, oh my gosh, if I'm not with this person, I'll be alone, and all these other things pop up that are so ridiculous, right? And here's where it's really shown up for me, that just hit me in the head like a ton of bricks. If I go down this path in my business, in my online business, I feel like I'm saying no to all these other things that I want to do and I want to explore in my life, and as I'm building my businesses online and off. But it's such a false belief. It's such a lie. Just because I go down one road for a little while doesn't mean I can't turn around and come back and go down a different road. Doesn't mean I can't make different turns on the road. I don't have to go in a straight line from where I am now to exactly where I'm going to be. And we don't know exactly where we're going to be because we're changing that all the time. We set goals and we set objectives and we think about what we want. And guess what? What we want, the big picture of what we want, is usually the same. But how we get there, things happen all along the way. And we have to be willing to course correct and change as it becomes necessary. But so often, the more resources and the more time and the more energy that we put into something, the more invested we are, and the more invested we are in that relationship or that business or that job or that, I don't know, it might be material possessions that you're collecting, that collection, that organization, the more we feel like we're stuck, if we feel like we're stuck and trapped, that's an indication that we're not where we should be, right? If something makes us feel bad, guess what? It's not for us. We need to make a change. We need to do something different. But so often, I've done this. I did this in my marriage. I knew the day I got married, and this is really scary to look back on, but I had this overwhelming feeling of making a huge mistake when I stepped out of the room, and when I was getting ready, but when I stepped out of the room, it was like I walked through a green slime or a green fog. And I stepped out, and my husband-to-be looks at me. He's like, oh my God, are you okay? You look like you're going to be sick. You're actually looking green. And it was because I had this massive, overwhelming feeling of panic and knowing I was making a mistake and that this was going to take my life in a certain direction. And I knew at that moment that it wasn't the right direction for me. But here's the deal. As I'm sitting there green and he's looking at me and I'm trying to get a smile on my face to say I'm fine, all these things are running through my mind. Okay, all your friends are at the church. All your family's at the church. All his friends and family are at the church. What's going to happen if you were to stop right now and make a different choice and not go through with it? Well, all this pressure was on me, and of course I went through with it. Had an interesting marriage for 20 plus years. Got divorced at like the 25-year mark. And think about, looking back, how different might my life have been had I been brave enough to know that that wasn't actually a point of no return, and that I could have made a different choice. I could have made a different decision then. Now, you might be thinking, and I was thinking at the time, well, if I don't go through with this, I'm going to be, living in a shack, raising my son by myself, and I'll be lonely and miserable forever. I'm sure that's the image I put in my head, which is what helped to motivate me to get down the aisle. But I've done that same thing in other areas of my life. Picking a bad business partner. We got involved with a business partner, and it turned out to be one of the worst experiences of my life. Way worse than my marriage. Way worse. It was. I can't even describe it. It was so effed up and so messed up. I learned a lot about people, and that they can behave in ways that you cannot even imagine, and you can't understand why they behave that way. It's just unbelievable. Done that with customers. I've kept customers in my businesses way too long, way past the point of knowing that they were actually damaging and causing more harm to my business than good, before I finally would let them go. But we talk ourselves into being afraid that if we make a change, all of the consequences are going to be bad. And usually it's just the opposite. When we stop, reevaluate, ask ourselves, how does this make me feel? Is this the right thing for me? Am I really making the right choice? And sometimes we make the wrong choice, and we know pretty quickly it's the wrong choice. And instead of stopping and turning around and saying, oh, I messed up. That was not the place I wanted to go eat. That is not the dress I wanted to buy. That is not the car I should have bought. Instead of turning around and saying, hey, I can fix this, and taking the dress back, leaving and going to a different restaurant, we're embarrassed. We're too embarrassed to leave. How many of you have ever gone into a restaurant, sat down, looked at the menu, and thought, there is not a freaking thing here I want to eat? Or looked at the prices and been appalled and said, oh my God, this is not what I wanted to spend for lunch. And instead of, apologizing, excusing yourself, saying sorry to the waitress, and leaving and going where you really want to go, you sat there and you had that experience in that place because you didn't want to be embarrassed by getting up and walking out and going somewhere else. How many of you have sat through a whole terrible movie at the theater because you already spent your money, you got your popcorn, you got your pop, you're sitting down. Nowadays you can have beer and wine, and it's not what you expected at all. It's actually horrible. And at the end of the movie, you sat through the whole thing because you'd invested these resources and you feel like you can't leave, but you're like, well, there's 2 hours of my life I'm never getting back, right? I've done that. I remember I went to a movie with my husband, and I don't remember what it was. It was so bad. It was one of those video movies. Gosh, what was it? I can't remember. But it was so bad. About halfway through it, he looks at me. He's like, I cannot sit through this. I am leaving. And so he left, and I sat there and watched the rest of the movie, which was horrible. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot get these 2 hours of my life back. And I wish I would have left with him, and we would have gone and had a drink or something. We would have had a lot more fun. But that was an example of, I was in a situation, and I felt like, hey, I've invested these resources. I'm going to stay and see it through. When sometimes, and I didn't like the movie either. I don't know why I was being stubborn and didn't leave with him, right? But we do this. We start down a path, and we feel like the more resources, the more time, energy, money, emotion, spirit that we put into something, a project, especially passion projects, and we get to a point where we know I shouldn't be doing this anymore. And I've done that with businesses. I've been involved in different businesses where I love going in, starting a new business, setting it up, putting all the systems in place, putting the people in place, and then letting it run itself. And I've stayed in jobs too long. I've stayed in businesses too long. I've had customers too long. I've stayed in relationships too long because I had this pressure of feeling like I had to, or it was the right thing to do. And I see other people doing the same thing, especially with relationships. And I don't know about you, but as a woman, the whole biological clock thing, and I think part of why I felt like I was compelled to get married was, number one, because I wanted my son to have his dad and both parents, and number two, there's a confession. Yes, I had a baby before I was married. Oh my God! And do that in corporate America as a single woman, 30 years old, in an all-male environment with 7 unions, 7 different unions, and be the only female manager that gets pregnant out of wedlock. Now that was a fun challenge. Boy, that was interesting. I laugh looking back now, but I ended up more times, and I'm not a crier, but I do recall a couple of times driving home from work with tears just rolling down my cheeks because of the nonsense and the crap I had to put up with in that job. Anyway, point of no return. We need to just remember that we always have options. Our world, especially nowadays, the world is so wide open, and so often, I just heard a story yesterday from my sister about a 17-year-old boy that committed suicide in our town. And suicide breaks my heart because it is a clear indication of someone that is for some reason at the point of no return, and they feel like their only option is dying and leaving this existence. And that gives me goosebumps, sad goosebumps too. It just makes me so heartbroken for them because there's always alternatives. I don't know why the world gets us to believe that we have to live in these little boxes, and if we it's so scary to step out of our comfort zone, to do something different, to make a different choice. But we really live in a world where we should all just be ourselves. We should all be embracing who we are and going for what makes us happy, as long as it doesn't hurt other people, and moving through and creating the life that works best for us. But instead, we feel like we have to follow other people's dreams, other people's expectations of us. One of the most freeing things for me leaving corporate America was I got to stop wearing uniforms. And it's really interesting because in my corporate career, we always had a uniform based on the company that I worked for, right? P&G, it was a navy blue or a black suit, white shirt, and you could maybe have a red tie. But for the most part, that was a uniform. And I was the mold breaker there. I would wear different things and different colors, God forbid, which was probably one of the reasons my boss just couldn't stand me. My boss, 2 levels up, couldn't stand me. It was really funny. I learned a lot. When people don't like you, you learn so much about yourself and about them. But there's always been like a uniform or an expected normal way of dressing and behaving and talking and acting. When I left corporate America full-time and just had my businesses, instead of being half and half, or not even half and half, it was corporate America 100% of the time, like if you had 200% of the time, and then work and then family. And it wasn't, I never believed in balance. I never have lived a balanced life. I personally think that is kind of a fallacy, and maybe we need to have attention to all the areas and aspects of our life, but they're never going to be equally balanced, right? We're not going to have equal time. Like, it's not like we have a little jar. All the time we have is here in this little 24-hour jar, and we're going to perfectly balance how much time we spend with our relationships, how much time we spend on our finances, how much time we spend on our physical, our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual well-being, how much time we spend on what we're going to do to contribute to the world. It's not ever going to be balanced, meaning equal amounts across the board. It's just not going to be. I don't know a single person on the planet that leads a totally and completely balanced life. They may be super duper spiritual, but then there's some other area of their life that is less than the amount of time they're spending on being spiritual. They might be kicking butt and taking names financially, but maybe their relationships are hurting, or their physical health. I was totally guilty of putting too much effort into work and businesses, not enough in me physically taking care of myself, or in my relationships, right? Divorced. So, point of no return. Obviously, I have a lot to say about the topic. Could probably talk into a whole day on the point of no return. I was thinking about this yesterday. I actually started to do this idiom thing just as a filler thing. I'm just going to do this while I'm moving, and it's turned into, actually, I look forward to it every day. I look forward to having a new idiom, a new expression every day that I'm finding out and learning the meaning of. You know, like some people like to have a word of the day. I've got like an idiom of the day now, where I like to find an idiom, and it's kind of like a word of the day on steroids, because you're taking words together that mean something totally different than they mean individually. And so I found that I'm looking forward to doing it every day, looking up an idiom and the meaning of it, and then sharing it and thinking about, well, what and how has this impacted me over my past lifetime, and how do I want to maybe tweak it and have it and use it going forward to grow my business, to achieve my goals and objectives, to help other people, to make the world a better place, whatever it is that I want to do. I'm actually having a really good time with it. It's kind of like my comfort zone challenge. My first 365-day challenge was on stretching my comfort zone. It was doing one thing every day that scares you. There's a little journal book I found up at the cabin, and every day I would hop online, number one, because I was scared to death to do video, right? I was like, I hate my voice. I hate the way I look. I'm old. I could think of all the things that were bad about me. I can't talk. I make mistakes all the time. I can't see, so it's not like I can't have a teleprompter or anything. And I'm pretty boring and whatever else. I had all kinds of reasons that I couldn't do video. And so to get myself out of that fear and stretch my comfort zone, I thought, well, what better way than to challenge myself every day to do something that scares me? And I just happened to be up at the cabin, and we were in Baxter at Christmas Point, and I found this little journal book, and actually, let me bend down and get it. I've actually got it sitting right here. Oh, wrong one. Right here. Do one thing every day that scares you. And every day, it was let's see how many days it ended up being. It was way more than 365. Because I went back to the beginning and started over. 382, 384. Magnifying glass, where are you? 386. So at least 386 days. Might be 387, can't tell. 386. So 386 days at least. Nope, 29th. 387. Okay, let's keep going. I guess it was more than that. Oh wow, I started this book. It's really funny. I started this book and here's the thing. Things that we're not invested in or committed to, it's very easy for us to quit. And this is an example of me being a quitter in the past. And not in a bad way, because I really never committed to doing it. But I actually bought this book because a friend of mine and I, oh my God, joined a network marketing company. And they were teaching us how to do things that were totally outside of my comfort zone. And I hated doing them. Now, come to find out 5 years later that they were complete and utter BS. And that is not the way that you do business, online or off. It's ridiculous. But they were still teaching the old school way of doing network marketing or MLM. So we were scared to do it. So I got this book, and I found one. I got one for her and one for me, because we were going to do it together and help each other out. And I thought, well, what better way than to stretch our comfort zone every day? And so we did it for like a couple days, and then we stopped doing it. Then I picked it up a couple other times and stopped doing it. And it was a perfect example to me of, once I commit to doing something and say I'm going to do it, I do it. And prior to, when did I do this? 2018, I did this. Was my 365-day challenge in 2018. I'm now on my fourth one. But in 2018, the beginning of the year, I committed to doing this whole book. And I just picked up where I had left off. I had done some of the pages, and I picked up where I left off. And then at the end of the year, I carried forward and went into 2019 to actually do every single page in the book. Because I was like, I don't feel like I've committed and done exactly what I said I would do, because I didn't do all the pages together. So I just did it all. But that's the difference between committing to something and doing it, and not committing, right? If I try something, it's easier to quit. I'm just going to try, and as soon as I have a little hardship or I have to struggle a little bit, I'm going to quit and do something else. But if I say I'm going to do something, if I pick a goal and I'm committed to it, and I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. That's how I am with challenges. If I say I'm going to do a challenge, I'm going to do it. So now I'm more careful with what I say I will and will not do. I used to say yes to everything and be overextended, and it used to almost kill me. And I learned that it's okay to say no, because it makes room for the stuff that I really want to do, that I really should be doing, versus just saying yes to everything. It's a personal growth and development thing when you have to go through those different stages. So, I'm just some coffee. Point of no return. Loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving the idioms. And, should I stop doing them? And people are like, well, why would you even do that? Why would I listen to that? Why would I want to know what a word of the day is? Why would I want to know what an idiom means and how I might be able to use it to build my business and achieve my goals and dreams? Well, because it's like reading. It's like we're always in this stage of becoming a better version of ourselves, right? We're always learning and growing and developing. And if we're not, guess what? A lot of people aren't. But if we're not, then we're downward spiraling. We're deteriorating. We live in a constant state of flux and change. And we're either changing with it in a positive way, or we're staying the same. But staying the same with everything around us changing means we're not really staying the same. We're going backwards, right? If you don't keep up with technology and changes in the workplace or in business, what happens? Other people who are paying attention swoop in and end up taking over the business, serving your customers better, which if they serve your customers better, then they deserve the business, right? If somebody comes into my industry and they do an amazing job, they come up with a new technology that changes the results that everybody gets, they deserve the business, right? They earn it. They deserve, because they're serving people better. They're adding more value to people's lives. And that's kind of a hard nut to swallow sometimes, especially when we're in a really competitive industry, a really competitive environment. We need to find the ways that we can serve people to the best of our ability, but we need to always be improving our ability, right? Another one I could talk about all day. So, point of no return, really good one. Idioms, super fun and valuable because they're just like reading. They're helping us to continually grow and become a better person. They're helping us to open our mind, and opening our mind sometimes just means looking at something from a different point of view. Day 33 of the fun challenge. I'm doing a 365-day fun challenge. Now I'm doing one thing every day that's fun, because last year I did do one thing every day that makes you happy. This year we're doing one fun thing every day. Now it's interesting. I read the back of the book with my magnifying glass, or somebody read it to me and they're like, well, these are kind of kid-like challenges. And it's really interesting because this journal is actually written for 6 to 9 year olds. So you could actually do this with your children if you've got kids that are any age, right? I am going to be 60 this year, and I'm sure I'm having just as much fun with this or more fun than a 6-year-old would. I could actually do these with my granddaughter. That might be kind of fun. I just thought of that now. I'm gonna start doing these with her at least Monday through Friday. We'll do one fun thing every day. We do one fun thing every day. That's the one cool thing about hanging out with a 4-year-old, is life is so much more fun. And I automatically see things from a different perspective, because I try to see things, okay, well, how does a 4-year-old look at this? How does she respond to this? And I'll tell you what, it is all about magic and unicorn and rainbows and positive ways of looking at things. And it's so funny. She said the other day, she goes, you know, Grandma, I see the world differently than other people do, because I see the magic, and I see that magic is in the world. She said most people don't see that. Now, to me, goosebumps, because that's an awful wise thing coming out of a little 4-year-old's mouth. And it's so true. We see what we look for in the world, and that's what we get. We get what we expect. I swear the expression "you get what you expect" was partially responsible for my divorce, because I truly believe that if you expect a great outcome, you're much more likely to get that great outcome than if you expect a bad experience, because you know what? You're presupposing that you're going to have a bad experience. Now there's reverse psychology and things you can use on yourself. You go into a party, you're like, oh, it's going to be terrible, and then you have a great time. I mean, sometimes that happens. Usually if you say, I'm going to a party, I'm going to have an awesome time, you're much more likely, your probability of having a great time goes up exponentially than if you expect that you're going to have a really crappy time. So, Live Life Challenge wrapped up Friday. I'm doing some bonus sessions this weekend, and I'm going to do a Q&A on Monday. Otherwise, I am working on, and the weekends I spend my time mapping out and writing and things like that. So I'm writing and mapping out and doing some creative things to streamline what I'm doing, because I've been all over the place. Because a lot of times I believed falsely that I had to do all these things or I would miss out on opportunity. And what I've learned, which is a really hard lesson, is that by trying to do all these things, I'm missing out on huge opportunity, because focusing is the way you need to go when you're doing things online. And it's really the same way that we're starting to see in the offline world. You have to start out with a focus and then expand. You have to serve a certain key group of people and then expand. And the better you serve that key group of people, the faster you grow and expand. And it's really counterintuitive, at least to me. And it's because I've always worked for organizations that were global and corporations that were global. And so I have this global mindset and perspective and the big picture perspective when I need to narrow my focus. So this year, I'm narrowing my focus on challenges. I'm really streamlining and doing a couple cool things in that area that I hope will make me the category queen of challenges, right? The unicorn of challenges. So we'll see. I guess I'm calling my shot and making that my goal. That's it. That's all I've got today that I can think of off the top of my mind. I've got a bunch of writing and a bunch of projects to do, and I am selling my home, so I've got a couple things to pull together for that. Otherwise, go out, make an absolutely amazing day, and I will be with you tomorrow. If I can help you in any way, just ask in the comments below, or direct message me, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom, or Pajama Grandma, Gramma, and you can find me. I'm pretty much, I'm out there and easy to find. Have a great day. Catch you tomorrow. Bye.